So you love paladins, huh? Well, who doesn't? You hate what they did to Smites, huh? Well, who doesn't? You're wondering if you can make a really good paladin still without a Smite? Well, you're in luck, because behind today's secret door, the Oath of Vengeance Paladin Test Drive. So behind today's secret door, the Oath of Vengeance Paladin Test Drive. This is Secret Door, a channel devoted to in-depth discussion about Dungeons and Dragons, and my name is Matt Morich. Alright, I have started a Patreon. If you're interested in supporting the channel, your help would be greatly appreciated and much needed. The link will be in the pinned comment and in the description, and many thanks to Marcelo, Doug, and Jamie for your support. Alright, so a test drive is exactly what it sounds like. It's your ability to see how a class will play level by level and compare it to other classes. I'm not going to make a direct comparison here in a level by level as I did with the Bard. There will be an indirect comparison due to damage, but the Paladin is more than just damage. So a test drive is kind of buildish and it's kind of guide-ish. It's a test drive. It's your ability to see how it will actually play, to see how it'll feel, because playing a character is a very big commitment and you shouldn't have to just commit to it but based on what you're able to figure out from reading a book or seeing a build video. All right, so in full disclosure here, a couple of confessions. Unlike the Warlock, I am a Paladin guy. I played one for years. That character started with 2nd edition rules, and then when 5th edition was coming out in the playtest, we switched to the playtest rules and played for that for, I think it was like 2 years. I could be wrong. And then the campaign began to wind down when the new Player's Handbook had finally come out. So I have an enormous amount of experience playing a Paladin, but here's the thing. I have so much empathy with the dilemma a Paladin faces that I want to avoid telling you what the right way to play a Paladin is, because there is no other class in the game. This is a point of practical concern for anybody who wants to play a Paladin. There is no class in Dungeons and Dragons that will get picked on, crucified, examined. Every little thing that they do will be so carefully scrutinized by, and I'm not even talking about the DM, I'm talking about your fellow players. Your DM may do it too. It is not a class for the squeamish, especially if you are the squeamish type. It is a class that you could easily just become a wallflower with, because anything you do will get scrutinized. Now, this is a very old school approach. I've been playing this game for over 40 years, and way back when, the Paladin had a very, very, very strict code, and if you violated that code for any reason in old AD&D rules, all your powers were gone, and you just became a fighter, and this and that and the other thing. So it was a whole thing. And so everybody felt like it was their job to be the Paladin cop. Well, that's not a very Paladin kind of thing for you to be doing, is it? This is the kind of thing that your fellow players who you thought were your friends will do to you. So be warned, be advised, even if players are newer players, I suspect that there will be glimmers of that just because of the nature of the character. It won't be as bad, I don't think, as what I had to deal with. And I'm not saying everybody at the table treated me that way. And they were all great players. And the players that did treat me that way were still really great players. And I really loved them. But sometimes players can't help themselves. So just be advised. This can not only, Okay, so the paladin can cause people that would never otherwise dream of telling another player how they should play their character. People feel as if they get carte blanche to do that with a paladin. Now, the rules here are much more liberal these days for playing a paladin than they ever were in the old days. So it's not quite as bad, but still the irritation effect, the having to explain yourself to others, why you said what you said, why you did what you did, all that, it can be maddening. So it is not for the squeamish. So a paladin is a wonderful character to play. And if you do have a larger than life kind of personality when you role play, which is how I tend to play, not every character, but if I'm playing a paladin, you bet I am, it's going to expose you even more. So just from a role-playing standpoint, and this is really all I really want to address in role-playing, because I am not going to try and even tell you how to be. I thought about giving some advice on this front. All I'm going to give you is these warnings to just be prepared that people will treat you differently, and I can't explain exactly why. Maybe it's that they think you're cheating somehow, that you're cheating the game, that you're robbing Dungeons and Dragons somehow by not being the letter perfect, how they imagine a paladin. And I suppose that's really the nature of it, is everybody has their very specific idea of what a paladin is supposed to be. And if you don't do exactly that, then, well, you're wrong in their eyes. Now, with this test drive, I'm going to try and keep this as simple as possible because I've already gone down a path of being very, very complicated with it. And I feel like if I try to just go through this verbally with you, blow by blow by blow, it's going to be boring and you can't help but get lost. So I'm just going to try and pick one lane and give you a very detailed snapshot idea as opposed to going into every little nut and every little bolt, because it will get lost. There are a lot of things a paladin can do, a lot of little tricks. It's not that it's a crazy dizzying amount, but there are moving parts, and a lot of it has to do with how they changed Smite. Now, I don't really want to spend time on that particular topic because it is what it is now. So Smite is no longer a feature, it's simply a spell. Doing a Smite costs a bonus action. So forget everything you knew about Smites before and have known for, the last 15, 20 years, since 3rd edition came out. It is what it is now. So I have tried, therefore, to find a pathway. That was the origin of a lot of my thinking here, was if the Smite can't do what it used to do, what can the Paladin do now? And what I am going to present to you is a Paladin that hardly ever uses Smites. It doesn't mean that you can't, it just means that you don't have to. But as I go through all this, I am going to allow for space, especially in terms of spell usage, for you to be able to use them as Smites if you choose. So with all that in mind, I'm going to try to keep this as simple as I can. Okay, for race, I think that this may or may not be the very best race to play a paladin with, but it's going to be hard to beat. And that's the Goliath, which I am not necessarily the greatest fan of, but the Goliath actually has, in terms of racial powers, they're actually surprisingly good. What I would pick is the Fire Giant. And now with the Fire Giant, you're able to add a D10. This is you can do this a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. So when you hit with an attack, you'll be able to add a D10 of fire damage to that attack. This is like a mini Smite. So if you crit, you'll be able to roll double those damage dice as well. And that would yield on a crit about 11 points of damage. Now, I'm not going to include those in my totals because the race pick isn't critical here. It's something that I think I'm pointing out because it's going to help cover that smite feel slightly. And it also has another power, which otherwise isn't one that I would normally remark on for most classes, but this is one that's pretty interesting, and that is that it can turn to a large-sized creature. When we get to 6th level, that particular feature is going to be pretty interesting. So between those two things and how they dovetail it so nicely for the Paladin, that's really why I'm picking the Goliath. The feat that I'm really worried about here is Lucky. And the reason why we want Lucky is that we need concentration saves to have some kind of backup. And so you're going to be using concentration spells quite a bit with this character. I mean, every combat, actually. So having the ability to maintain that save, at least to some degree, is going to be important. Now, from that point of view, you could argue that Human is also going to be a very valid one, because obviously you could take Lucky and you would be getting a free heroic inspiration, which would only help you even more in terms of concentration. But rather than picking one extra pickup for that save, I would rather have the extra damage and the ability for my 6th level ability, which you could argue is maybe the best ability the Paladin has, to be even better. And with all that in mind, of course, with a test drive, I'm not worried about multiclassing. I know that there is a very juicy multiclassing option for the Paladin. I'm well aware of that. This actually, what I'm doing here, won't be very good with that multi-class option. So don't worry about that. I'll deal with that one day soon. So for stats, I'm going to say let's put the 15 into strength with the +2 into strength. The rest of them I don't really care about, but my best advice to you is I would want no less than a 14 charisma. I would want a 14 constitution. I can live with a not dumped dex, but a dex at 10, dump intelligence, and wisdom 12. And it's not ideal. It isn't ideal, but that's where I would look at it. So we get a D10, we get heavy armor, we get martial weapons, we get weapon mastery, which is fantastic. We get spell casting at 1st level, which is fantastic. We get Lay on Hands. Lay on Hands, you can heal 5 points of damage per Paladin level. You can spend 5 points to also remove the poison condition, but it doesn't do any healing. So Lay on Hands is a nice ability, and you may be wanting to do Lay on Hands as your pickup ability. So if a comrade falls, you may want to use it strictly for that reason, and it's a good reason. So there are a bunch of 1st level spells that all deserve some attention and love. Bless can be a spell that at this level, affecting 3 targets, giving them 12.5% on average. Increase in attack rolls and saving throws can be the difference. It can win you an encounter at 1st level. And this is simply because hitting or missing in for one round is a very big deal in 1st level fights. It's you're never more vulnerable as a character than you are at these low levels. So being able to hit accurately, consistently, is one of the surest ways to victory. And of course, making saving throws is always important. Cure Wounds, of course, and Cure Wounds has gotten a bump. All the healing spells got a bump. It's doing 2d8 plus your spellcasting modifier right now, and that's Charisma. So that's a spell to consider preparing. Divine Smite is a spell to consider preparing. You're going to get a free one at 2nd level, and you'll always have it prepared at 2nd level, but you'll be able to trade that out. So do you want it at 1st level? If this character is ever going to smite and smite away, it's going to be at 1st and 2nd level. So let's now talk about weapons. So I went back and forth and I did all the numbers all day long, and there are so many numbers that you can plug in and out and all over the place that it's kind of maddening. I ultimately came down to the Great Axe or dual wielding, and they are pretty comparable all the way through. I am going to present to you dual wielding. Just know that whatever numbers I'm quoting you for dual wielding, the Great Axe, when you figure it all out, and believe me, it's for the benefit of this video that the dual wielding turned out to be really the optimal choice, ever so slightly optimal for most levels, because the Great Axe is very complicated to explain how it gets to those numbers. But with dual wielding, it's pretty straightforward. So with this setup, I'm going to want you to have a short sword and a scimitar. Now, the short sword is going to get Vex now, and the scimitar is going to get Nick. Nick is obviously great. Vex is great, but you don't need it come 3rd level. So if you wanted to have dual scimitars, you're not going to gain Nick twice, so don't think that way. That doesn't work like that. But if the aesthetic of having dual scimitars appeals to you for some reason come 3rd level, you could certainly do that. But having a weapon that can provide Vex, if for some reason your channel divinity at 3rd level is not available to you for some reason, then having Vex in a pinch could be useful. It could also be useful for off-target, because, well, I'll get to the channel divinity. But so Vex could be useful is my point, but it's just not going to be as great as it normally would be. All right, so now I need to talk about some baseline problems here. So with Smite, the way they have it now, if you are choosing to use Smite, it's a bonus action that it's a spell that costs you a bonus action that you can now do immediately after you've scored a hit. So in that respect, it's how Smite used to work, but it's costing you a bonus action, which in this case with dual wielding is going to cost you an attack. So you must look at how much value are you getting from that Smite versus how much you're getting from your attack. Now, the Great Axe, the one thing it has going for it is that there are enough bonus actions available to the Great Axe that you can get Smites in there. The disadvantage with the Great Axe is that if you were to want to use a Smite crit, it's gaining you about as much as you would if you were just to do it a normal Smite. The advantage with dual wield is that because the singular attack damage is lower, the relative value of the Smite is higher. But there are going to be situations that I'm going to explain to you where that still may not be entirely true. I am not going to really be addressing Smites overly much. Dual wielding, you will be able to do it if you choose to, but you'll be able to generate significant damage really without smiting as a matter of regular course. I think, of course, there's going to be times you're going to want to drop a Smite, but I'm not going to be including them overly much in the DPRs here. Now, the spell that I want you to consider especially for dual wielding, the 1st level spell, is Divine Favor. Now, Divine Favor lasts a minute. It doesn't have concentration. It does cost a bonus action to cast, and all of your attacks do an extra D4 of damage. So it's like concentration-free Hex that only lasts for a minute. It also has the advantage that you don't have to take a bonus action to place it onto somebody else. But it is only doing a D4 versus a D6, and it doesn't do anything else besides that. However, at 3rd level, we are going to get Hunter's Mark, and we're going to be using Hunter's Mark. Divine Favor at levels 1 and 2 is the spell that you should be considering to use in those kind of cases, especially because at levels 1 and 2, you don't have a bonus action. Nick is taking that bonus action and subsuming it into your attack action. So you have a bonus action free to you, which you could use to Smite, but Divine Favor, getting 2 attacks a round, is going to be generating 3 points a round without considering crits. And I'm assuming 3 combats a day lasting 4 rounds each. So that would be 12 points of damage that you would be gaining at this level from Divine Favor from a 1st level spell slot, plus crits. A Smite will generate, a regular Smite, not a crit Smite, will generate 9 points of damage. So it has slightly higher value and it's consistent throughout that. It is, however, only for 1 encounter. I mean, it's for a minute, so presumably 1 encounter. However, as we go along, as we get to like 3rd level, it's going to be interesting because it doesn't have concentration. It can stack with Hunter's Mark. But don't get too excited about this yet because you're only going to be able to pull this kind of a trick off very, very rarely because of how the bonus action problems all play out. So I'm just saying all of this to point out that you're going to have your options of whether you're going to use Divine Favor or you're going to use Smites here at 1st and 2nd level, and it's not going to figure into the DPR that I'm giving you. These are your primary ways of augmenting damage. Each attack, when you consider crits in, each attack would be doing 1.75 from Divine Favor. But bear in mind that you have Vex, and that's going to be important here at 1st and 2nd level. So one of those Divine Favor attacks will do even slightly more still and have even a little bit better chance to crit, because if you hit with the first attack from Vex, you're gaining advantage. See what I mean when I'm talking about how many different moving parts there are going to be with this character? This is actually the simple version. So at 1st level dual wielding, and remember we don't have the fighting style yet, you're going to be doing about 6.87 naturally. If you add Divine Favor in, you'll be adding another 3.61 for a total of 10.48 at 1st level. That's very, very good damage. Now, I should also point out here that the damage, no matter what we do, the damage is going to be very good, but it is not going to be Berserker Barbarian good. At 2nd level, we get our fighting style feat, and we get Paladin Smite. Paladin Smite is simply just we always have Divine Smite prepared, and we get a free casting of it once a day. Fighting style, obviously, we're taking 2-weapon fighting, which allows us to add our strength or dex onto our offhand attack. Now, that fighting style will change our DPR in dual wielding. It's a little difficult to tell for sure because you just never know if you're going to have advantage from the first attack or not. Whether Vex score gives you advantage or not. I would say look at it as an average of having a 75% chance to hit, which would mean you're getting 2.25 extra in DPR from where we were. So now 12.75, which is great damage at 2nd level. And at level 3, of course, now we get our Oath of Vengeance. We also get Channel Divinity. So our Channel Divinity, you can use Divine Sense. We're never going to use that. So it allows you to tell in the immediate area where fiends, etc. are, and you know their location. And it could be useful in off situations, non-combat situations. Your Oath of Enmity with the Paladin, the Vengeance Paladin, is so good that is your sole reason to take it. Oath of Enmity is fantastic. You can expend a use of your Channel Divinity, and you can select a creature that you can see within 30 feet of you, and you gain advantage on attack rolls against that target. If the target drops to 0, you can transfer it to another target. This is no action required. So this is advantage around the clock. It's fantastic because you have 2 uses of Channel Divinity and you gain 1 on a short rest, an expended use on a short rest. So if you are in a situation where you have 4 combats in a day, you may end up in a scenario where you don't have this available to you. That will be kind of an oddball situation. It will happen from time to time, undoubtedly, but the vast majority of the time, I think you'll be fine. And you'll gain more at much later levels, you'll gain more. Your oath spells are Hunter's Mark and Bane. So let's talk Hunter's Mark really quickly. Unlike Hunter's Mark is very much like Hex, except for the durations, which are strangely different. I don't know why they did this to Hunter's Mark. A 1st level slot will last for an hour, and if you cast it with a 3rd or 4th level slot, it will last 8 hours. And if you cast it with a 5th level slot, it'll last 24, but we're not really worried about that. You place it on a target, and you're doing an extra d6 in damage. To move it to another target is a bonus action. So for this setup with dual wield, you're not even really using a bonus action yet. at 4th level and there beyond, you will start using bonus actions for attacks. So you're only going to get that bonus action attack in general twice in a 4-round combat, because you're going to be using one bonus action for Hunter's Mark. You're going to then have to probably move it to another target at some point in the combat, is what I'm assuming, which means that you would have 2 extra attacks, which is still worth it. But I just want to point that out because it sounds glorious when you hit 5th level and you're doing 4 attacks, that you would be getting Hunter's Mark on all of those, but you don't. You're only going to get that for all 4, 2 out of the 4 rounds. But you're still getting Hunter's Mark on the off rounds in those scenarios for 3 of those attacks. So you're still Hunter's Mark is a great spell for dual wielding. It's just that it's so painful because it's right there. So it's a fantastic spell. It's worth it. It's one of the assets of the Vengeance Paladin. So as I had mentioned with the Divine Favor, you might be able, in certain scenarios, let's say you know that something is behind that door. This is something you're not going to be able to do very often. But if you know there's something behind that door and you really suspect it's a big fight coming your way, before you open the door, cast Divine Favor. It costs a bonus action. If you've got Hunter's Mark already running, or even if you don't, it's not going to interfere with that. So you would be getting a D4 and a D6 on every attack. Now, I'm not going to include those in the numbers because the ability to pull that scenario off is going to be few and far between, but you'll be able to do it from time to time, and boy, will that be fun. At this level, with 2 attacks, you're able to get 4.75 in damage since you have advantage on each attack. And when you're considering extra crit chances, etc., from Divine Favor. Hunter's Mark is going to be adding like 6.5 points of damage per round when you figure everything in because you have advantage. It's a significant bonus. But this is the thing. Because you have Hunter's Mark running and your regular form of attack. Now, granted, you're still not using bonus actions to attack yet because you've only got the attack and the bonus attack, which is subsumed by Nick. So you still don't have complications just yet. So you could have Hunter's Mark, and it's not going to interfere with anything right now here at 3rd level. So you could still drop in some Smites, but you've only got so many slots, but you do have the freebie. So you'll still be able to drop that in, and you could drop it in on a crit, and assuming it's not falling on a Hunter's Mark placing turn. But come 4th level, you're going to have bonus action attacks, and so this is the time to enjoy Smites that are going to be at their highest value for you. Level 4 for our ASI, we're of course taking the dual wielding feat. So now we're going to be able to get an extra attack. So now we're hitting 3 times a turn. That attack is going to be a bonus action attack. It's also going to gain its full value because the bonus action attack that it grants does not specify that you cannot apply your modifier to that attack roll. So in other words, everything should be attacking like normal with 3 attacks. So your DPR now, with the bonus actions required for Hunter's Mark, and you're getting the extra bonus action attack, in the rounds where you're able to get all 3 attacks off, you're going to be doing a whopping 30.15 in damage at 4th level. In the rounds where you have to place Hunter's Mark and you lose that attack, you're going to be dropping down to 20.10. Now, 20.10 is still amazing at this level. So you're doing exactly, in a 4-round combat, you'll be doing half and half. So in the middle, you're doing about 25 points of damage DPR here at level 4 on average, which is fantastic. That's an insane damage output for this level. And at 5th level, we get a bunch of stuff. Of course, we get extra attack. We get access to 2nd level spells. We get Find Steed. So Find Steed is one of these abilities that is great. It's wonderful. I love it. It's not going to be so great in every campaign or with every DM. I didn't I could go on and on with this ability. I'm not going to try and go into it really very much here at all, other than the fact that obviously having any kind of mount is great, and having one that you can call upon that's as good as that mount is fantastic. But there are going to be a lot of campaigns and a lot of DMs where it isn't all that great. So I don't want to oversell how wonderful it is, except that if you are in a situation or you have a DM that's favorable towards it, you're going to love it. And if you are in one of those kind of situations, even though you get a free casting of it and you can make great use of it, I would always want to keep a reserved second level spell in my back pocket just for that, if I needed it to replace it. Now you're going to have 4 first level spell slots and 2 second level spell slots. And you're going to have a free Divine Smite. So now your DPR with the extra attack means that you're gaining 3 attacks without the use of a bonus action. So now your base is 30.15 like it was in your good turns on level 4. You pick up another 10.05 when you get the other attack off. So yes, you are doing 40.2 points of damage in your full rounds. When you're able to sneak Divine Favor in those glory moments where you're able to stack it on top of Hunter's Mark, you'll be adding, with 4 attacks, 9.5. This means that you'll have opportunities, without a smite, of being able to pull off 50 points of damage in a round at 5th level. Granted, you have Hunter's Mark running and you're burning another spell slot, but that spell slot would now be providing for you a first level spell slot with the Divine Favor. And I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it's worth noting that you would be getting somewhere in the neighborhood of 33 or 34 points of damage in total for a 4-round combat from a first level spell slot. That's crazy. That's the thing that I like about dual wield for the Vengeance Paladin, is that because you have access to these kinds of things, and it's the only one that has Hunter's Mark, that you're able to pull tricks like this off when you really have to have them, and you're able to do that. Let me point out the problem. If you were to try and do this in combat, it's really a bad idea unless this were a combat that looks like it's going to take a long time, because your bonus action is going to be used here in round 1 to drop Hunter's Mark, and then you'd have to do another one for Divine Favor. Now, granted, they will be adding together, but you won't be getting still your 4th attack off. So you would have to be sure that you're looking at something like 5 rounds of combat just to be able to make sure that you're getting value out of it. All that being said, it's a great, great trick when you can pull it off. Now, you also have Hold Person, which is situationally an interesting spell sometimes, but you have Misty Step. Now, it's a bonus action casting to do Misty Step, so it's going to have utility for you, for sure. If you need to be able to get to an elevated position, or you need to be able to jump over a chasm, whatever, you can always use it for that kind of utility. In combat, I would say I would only do it if I simply had to get there. And if I simply had to get there, well, it's just 1 attack that you're giving up. That is the other nice thing about dual wielding, is you're sure you don't want to give up having 4 attacks at 5th level, but you're still getting 3, and you've got, Hunter's Mark on it and whatever. So now let's address the Goliath here, because at 6th level, we're going to be talking a bit more about the Goliath. Remember that if you did go Goliath, we have a proficiency bonus of 3 now. So that means that you're going to be able to drop that Goliath fire damage in 3 times in a round, which you can do with crits. And that's going to do 11 points of damage on average on a crit. It's a D10. So you could just roll a D10, or if you crit, you could roll 2 and get about 11. The total value of that is just going to be just under 3 if you used all 3 on crits. It's going to be raising your DPR by yet almost another 3. So your base DPR in your peak is 40, and at your low, on your 3 attack round is 30. So you're looking at something around 35, 36 for your baseline DPR. If you did go Goliath and we're talking about crits, your DPR is actually looking at 38. Now, that's a really great number. I'm only going to touch very briefly on a level 11 here, and then we'll be done when I get to level 11. That's where things go really berserk for dual wield. That was the deciding factor, ultimately. Now, at level 6, you get Aura of Protection. You generate an emanation of 10 feet. Anybody within that 10 feet, including yourself, gains a bonus to all saving throws equal to your Charisma modifier. So this is going to help with concentration. It's going to help with just, all saving throws. It's an amazing ability. And if you are a Goliath, it got even better, because if you did become large, you now occupy 4 squares as opposed to 1. And that emanation is still coming 10 feet off of you. So instead of a 5x5 square that you would be generating with a 10-foot emanation, you are now in a 6x6 square that's around you. So that pickup of those extra squares means, of course, that your comrades don't have to be sticking so absolutely huggy to you, but they still obviously have to be close. I mean, they're still within 10 feet of you. It doesn't change the emanation radius. It's just the sheer amount of coverage is higher because you are bigger. So there is a bit of utility there. It also does provide, if you do have any kind of followers or hirelings or just simply all the different pets that there might be, familiars, et cetera, those could all be in that field as well, just as they normally would be, but now there's 11 more squares for them to go to. So let's just take a quick snapshot here. You've been good with damage from the beginning. At 3rd level, you gain advantage all the time. Every attack roll, amazing. At level 4, you're picking up a 3rd attack. At level 5, you're picking up to 4 attacks. You're doing insane damage at level 4 and really good damage at level 5. But now at level 6, level 6 is where you really feel like a real paladin, because now you've got the aura. If you can find anything to increase your charisma, grab it. It's the gift that keeps on giving. So whatever kind of magic item you can find, and it's a bonus to your charisma. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of very popular character types. Warlocks and bards and sorcerers are all pretty popular, and they all want that too. You have a really good argument, though. Not as good as theirs, unfortunately, because it affects everything they do. But the thing that it affects for you is such a defensive bulwark for your party that I would never personally, as a paladin, want to compete with a primary casting charisma character for such an item. But boy, it would be hard not to. But saving throws are, of course, one of the most swingy things in Dungeons and Dragons. And so anything you can do that's going to amplify that is great. And the fact that it's not just for you, but for your party, and if you are Goliath who use the growth thing in that combat, then you're going to be able to shield a little bit better. So an amazingly good ability. At 7th level, we gain Relentless Avenger. So when you do an opportunity attack, if you score a hit, you're able to drop their speed to 0 until the end of the current turn. You can move half your speed without incurring opportunity attacks. This is a good power. I mean, I'm not going to crow about it too much because opportunity attacks are one of those things that's just very DM dependent. So obviously your ability to pin the enemy to 0 speed can have all kinds of tactical things, but it just depends on if the DM does a lot of opportunity attacks. If they do, this is a great power. If they don't, then it's not going to be that great. Also at 7th level, you gain a 3rd 2nd level spell slot. So also very nice. When the moments come up, and if you were to drop a crit smite and you were to drop a 2nd level smite on that, you have a little bit of flexibility to do that here. If you were inclined to want to use that 3rd second level slot, on a crit smite, that would be doing about 27 points of damage. So is that going to be better than doing your bonus action attack if you didn't have Divine Favor running, say, and you were just dealing with Hunter's Mark? Yeah, you're gaining 17 points off of a second level slot, which is still really good. It's not great value for a second level slot, but that's a big chunk of damage. I mean, that is 2.5-ish points of DPR overall. So it's a great opportunity. Level 8 is our ASI, and we're simply just bumping our strength up to 20. That's going to bump our overall DPR just under 3 when you figure that you're half getting 4 attacks and half getting 3 attacks. So that extra +1 comes out to just under 3 with advantage. And at 9th level, we gain Abjure Foes, and we gain 3rd level spells. Now, Abjure Foes is one of those powers that if we weren't a Vengeance Paladin, I would go on and on and on about it. It's a pretty darn cool power. But it requires a channel divinity, and you are a Vengeance Paladin, and you need to be always using Vow of Enmity without question. It's way too powerful to not always be using it. But if you were playing a different Paladin, Abjure Foes is one of those powers, especially if you found a way to be primarily a Charisma Paladin, then we're talking about something pretty darn cool here. But that's a power that's largely just going to be almost never used by you. Now, your 3rd level slots, you're gaining... now, with your 3rd level slots, Oath of Vengeance is giving you haste, and it's giving you protection from energy. Haste is one of those spells that used to be a broken spell, and then they made it simply an okay spell, and now it's kind of like even, I guess it's still okay. I'm not in love with haste. I would much rather have the damage from Hunter's Mark over haste. The only advantage I can say about haste is that you would lose a bit in damage even though you are gaining an extra attack, but you would be losing all the dice from Hunter's Mark because it's a concentration spell. But you gain movement and you gain a +2 to your AC. So in certain situations, you might take a little bit of a hit in how much damage you're dealing out to be able to do haste, and maybe you could still find a way to drop Divine Favor in there. You also, because it's an action to cast it, you lose out on round 1 damage big time because you're only able to do 1 extra attack. So you're casting and then you get... Haste is just not a great spell for martial characters to be casting on themselves in any case. Protection from energy, nice situationally, but your 3rd level slots at this point should be used for Hunter's Mark. You get 2 of them though, and because Hunter's Mark will now last for 8 hours. So that should be your primary concern for one of the slots to use for Hunter's Mark in that case. If you should lose concentration or whatever from that, then you can supplement with 1st level slots. And then you could use that 3rd level slot for that crit smite scenario. Because now a crit smite with a 3rd level slot, you're looking at 36 points of damage. And your base has not changed really. So you're looking at a net of about 25 points of damage with that smite. So that bonus is giving you about a 2-point differential in DPR, just that one use of a crit. So 36 points of damage in one shot is, especially when you consider things like doing it against a caster, because you are just ramping up their concentration that they have to try and make. So at 10th level, we get Aura of Courage. Anybody within your aura is immune to the frightened condition, and anybody that has the frightened condition that enters the aura is not affected by the frightened condition. So one of those things that in certain campaigns is going to be amazing. and is otherwise great when you need it, and is, well, obviously useless if you don't need it. It's really nice to be able to walk into situations, though, and know that people won't be debuffed, at least if they're within your aura. And then when we get to 11th level, we get Radiant Strikes. And this is where everything blows up, and this is the last level, and I'm going to be very quick. So Radiant Strikes, you do an extra D8 whenever you hit. And you're doing 4 attacks. And you have an advantage on every attack. So with that extra D8, when you're doing 4 attacks in a round, when you're doing 4, remember you only still are doing that half the time. But that's bumping your DPR when you're considering advantage with crits, etc., to 17.1. This is bumping you into the near 60 range, and I'm saying this approximately because of all the different things that you can do. So, were you able to pull off Divine Favor? Because that makes it more absurd. Did you smite in that round? It makes it even more. So this is what I mean when if I were to go and just drill down on every little thing, we'd be here all day. So as high as these numbers are, they still don't touch where the Berserker goes at this level. I mean, they're off in a whole different stratosphere, but you are definitely a heavy hitter with the ability to defend your party, to augment your party, to help your party. This is, and of course you have heavy armor and all that stuff. It's just a fantastic character, and you can still squeeze the smites in and make them work for you to be able to tweak the damage when you need it. That's what smites really are about now. They're not about, mechanically you really can't, if you were to try and work all smites the way they worked in the old days, then you wouldn't be able to do this kind of damage round by round by round. And that's far more valuable than the smites. The smites are now the sprinkles. Just the sprinkles that when you really need it, you can go get it. You can go get it. And you've got the baseline ability there, and the Radiant Smites and Hunter's Mark and Divine Favor when you can toss it in. It's it's a lot of fun. Now, were I to play a Paladin now, would I play a Vengeance Paladin? No. Why? Because I played that other guy and he started as a Vengeance Paladin in the playtest. So I've already done it. But I would definitely play a Paladin again for sure. It's a great character. But remember what I said in the beginning. You have to be ready for people to tell you that they know best how to play a Paladin. All right. Well, that's all I've got. If you enjoyed the video, please like, please share, please subscribe. And if you're stuck and you don't know where to go, you can always search for a secret door. Until next time, I cast bless on all of you.